Hi quilters, it's Pam Heller from Quilt. Are you ready for our block of the month? I am so excited. We're gonna make this beautiful quilt behind me. And I love the fact that some of the blocks are the same and some of them are different fabrics. It's gonna be a really fun project for us to work on. So before we get started, we'd like to thank our two sponsors. Of course, we'd like to thank Quilt for their sponsorship and Anthology Fabrics for these beautiful batiks. So for our batik sampler, you can use either two things. You can use your rotary cutter and your ruler, or you can use your Go fabric cutter. If you're gonna use your Go fabric cutter, you wanna make sure you have an 8-inch cube to go with it. So quilters, we're gonna talk about how to use the cube and the blocks inside, the dies inside, and I'm gonna show you just a couple of quick tips and tricks. Then we're gonna cut some fabric and show you how to put this beautiful block together. So first of all, quilters, let's talk about our cube. So our 8-inch cube comes in this great storage container, and watch this. Ta-da! Inside each cube, you're gonna find 8 dies. Now, quilters, these dies are numbered, so let me show you. They're numbered 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You'll notice that not only the dies are numbered, but the pockets that they go in are numbered as well. Included in your cube is a training DVD, a cutting mat, and a pattern book. So if you have any questions on how to use your cube, you can just stick that DVD in, go to the part that you had a question about, and find the answers. It's all beautiful. Now today, we're gonna use just 3 dies from our cube. We're gonna use die number 2, which is right here, which is our squares, die number 3, which is my very favorite shape, half square triangles, and die number 5, which is here in the second pack, and these are smaller half square triangles. So now watch how easy your cube goes back into its box. Just gonna put them right back in here. We want your sewing room to be nice and tidy. Look how great that is. I'm just gonna set it off to the side here. So let's cut some fabric, see how this works. So with your Go fabric cutter, it's gonna be 90% faster than with rotary cutters or scissors. You can cut up to 6 layers of cotton fabric in one pass. So I have my 3 dies here. So I'm gonna refer to my patterns. Always have your pattern nearby. So in this particular one, I'm gonna cut from fabric 1, 2, 3, and 4. And we're gonna just use those 3 shapes. You wanna make sure your pattern's nearby so that you're not cutting the wrong fabric on the wrong shape. So from die number 5, we're gonna cut half square triangles. So quilters, this is die number 5. You know it's die number 5 because right here the label says die number 5. Now you wanna cut with the lengthwise grain. So I'm gonna put that label at my belly. I want the lengthwise grain of the fabric to travel back and forth through the machine. So now the pattern is going to tell you what size strips to cut. So you want to make sure you're cutting your strips. Now watch how clever this is. So I'm going to take my fabric that's already pre-cut. I'm going to lay it right here just on top of this shape. The salvage edge is away from me, and this is the lengthwise grain. So because I can cut 6 layers, I'm gonna just fan fold right over the top, okay? Now, you just need your 6x6 cutting mat. Don't worry about this little tail, just kinda wanna tuck it in there. And now I'm gonna run it through the fabric cutter. Here's a tip of the day. If you lift this mat up, all the pieces fly everywhere. So you wanna slide that mat, don't lift. Pull back. And ta-da, we've cut perfect half square triangles. Now we need to cut some half square triangles on the other fabric, so I'm gonna do the exact same thing. I'm gonna take the salvage edge away from me, that label at my belly, this is the lengthwise grain. I'm gonna fan fold 6 layers, and look at this. The machine cuts both directions. So take my little tail, tuck it in there, run it through. Again, quilters, you want to make sure you don't lift that mat off. Slide it off, pull back your fabric, and ta-da, half square triangles. So you would continue to cut half square triangles. The pattern will tell you how many you need to cut. So we're all done using this particular die. So let's go to die number 3, which is my very favorite shape, half square triangles. Again, I'm going to take that label, I'm going to put it at my belly, and I'm going to use this beautiful strip that is already pre-cut. The instructions will tell you how many you need to cut. Keep in mind, quilters, that sometimes on our dies in the cube, there are multiple shapes. So for example, there were 2 half square triangles there. There are 2 half square triangles here. So depending on what the pattern tells you, you want to make sure that you remember that they're cutting 2 in one pass. So take that salvage edge. I'm just going to fan fold across the top. We can cut up to 6 layers. Take my cutting mat. Look how easy this is. Okay, slide, don't lift. Pull back our fabric. And ta-da, we've cut half square triangles. Remember, quilters, we cut off those dog ears for you so that right here along the edge, that's a perfect 1/4 inch seam allowance. All right, we've cut our half square triangles. And finally, let's cut some squares. So just like our other dies, you want to make sure that label's at your belly. It's going to cut 4 2.5 inch squares. So we're going to take our strip of fabric, salvage edge away. This is your lengthwise grain. Put the mat on. Run it through the fabric cutter. So quilters, you want to keep in mind that the pattern is going to tell you how many of each shape to cut. Pull back my mat, and look, I've cut perfect squares every single time. So now, after I've cut all of my pieces, you're going to come over and I'm going to show you how we've already started to put our block together. So here's our squares and our half square triangles. My tip would be to iron towards the dark side on your triangles and then iron towards the squares. It'll keep that pieces that'll make it nice and flat in the center so you don't have that bulk in the center. So we've taken some of our squares and half square triangles, put them together to make this 4 patch. We've put our half square triangles together to make a bigger half square triangle to match that number 3 shape. And we put them together in a block. And then look, all we have to do is continue to sew them together and fill in the block right there. So it's a really fast, simple way to put together this beautiful block. So quilters, now that we've cut all of our pieces, let me show you how to put it together. What we're going to do is we're going to take those 2 half square triangles, sew them together, press to the dark side, and then when you add these half square triangles on the end, you just want to press towards those triangles. Again, that's going to allow your quilt to sit nice and flat. You won't get that bulge or bulk. And then look, the next piece that goes with it is our half square triangles. So I'm going to show you how it fits right here in the block. Again, quilters, you want to make sure you're following those directions so that you assemble your block together. So now you're going to take and sew those 2 pieces together, press towards the dark side, and you're going to make a block that looks just like this. And then quilters, you want to take these 2 blocks, sew them together to make a block that looks just like this. So now, let's put it the right direction there. So ta-da, here's our finished block. Now you'll notice that I already sewed those 3 other blocks together. So that's the process that you want to use, quilters. You want to cut all your fabric first and sew it together in the directions that it tells you to go. Stay tuned, we have another block left. All right, quilters, let's get to our next block this month. This block is called Sawtooth Star, and I love this block because it allows you to use flying geese. And sometimes flying geese are a little tricky, so I'm going to show you some great tips. So first of all, I'm going to make sure that I always have my pattern out, and I'm going to follow the cutting instructions of the fabric so that I'm cutting the strips that I need to cut. Now, this particular pattern has 4 different colorways of blocks. So you can see over here that we've made 3 of our blocks, and we're going to put together that 4th block. So what's great about this particular pattern is that each of the center blocks are the different colors. So how easy is this? I'm going to take die number 1, take that label, put it at my belly, lengthwise grain of the fabric back and forth. And since I only need 1 of every color, I'm going to take my strips that I've already pre-cut. I'm going to put them all together just like this. Don't worry about the tail, it'll go through just fine. All right. I love these batiks. All right, and then I have 4. So watch how I'm going to do this, quilters. I'm going to take my fabric and I'm just going to barely cover the shape. All right, this is the lengthwise grain because here's the salvage edge. Then I'm going to take my next color and do the exact same thing. I'm going to barely cover that shape. We don't want to waste this beautiful fabric. My 3rd color. All right, and then my final color. So we're going to cut all the center squares in one pass. How slick is that? All right, so now I want to take and put the cutting mat on top, and I kind of want to just straighten out my tails a little bit here. Don't worry about it. It's going to go through the fabric cutter just fine. So I'm going to kind of take my tail, I'm going to kind of scrunch it up a little bit so that it goes through the fabric cutter. All right. And I'm going to turn my handle. See? Don't stress about the tail. You want to slide that mat off, don't lift, otherwise the pieces go everywhere. And look, ta-da, we've cut perfect squares all in one pass. Now I'm going to take these same packet of fabric because the next shape are smaller squares. And quilters, we just need 4 of each color of smaller squares. And there are 4, 1, 2, 3, 4 on the die board. So I'm going to take that label, put it at my belly, take my stack that I just cut with, I'm going to lay it right across the top of this die. Again, I'm just going to barely cover those shapes so we're not wasting fabric. Put the cutting mat on top. We're going to take our little tail, kind of just tuck it in right there. Otherwise, quilters, then you have to cut strips and squares, and it's just so much harder if you just do it like that. Perfect. Now I'm going to slide that mat off, and look, we've cut all of those squares for our corner squares perfectly. So see how easy that is to use? Now next, quilters, every single one of our blocks needs quarter square triangles. Well, imagine that, they need 4, and there are 1, 2, 3, 4 on the die board. So watch this. I'm going to take my stack, because we know it's clean and perfect. Put that label at my belly. Just barely cover my shapes. All right. It's kind of fun in flying geese. The bigger triangle is actually a quarter square triangle, not a half square triangle. All right. And again, quilters, you want to make sure your fabric's lined up. Otherwise, when it cuts, it's going to cut it wonky. All right, just lay it there. Put it down here. See, we're not wasting fabric at all. I'm going to put my cutting mat right on top. Take my little edges, run them through the fabric cutter. Okay, watch this. You want to take the fabric, slide, don't lift. Oh, there we go. All of our quarter square triangles are flying everywhere. All right, so look how easy it was to make those quarter square triangles. And then finally, I'm going to cut half square triangles. You want to follow the instructions to see how many half square triangles you cut. Just to make it easier, I'm going to just cut off these little ends right here. Look at that, you can keep them for dog beds. All right, so just like our other times that we've cut, we're just going to barely cover those half square triangles We're going to put the cutting mat on top. We're going to tuck up our tail. Don't worry about it. Run it through the fabric cutter. Slide that mat off. And look, ta-da, we've cut perfect half square triangles. So then, quilters, you would just take the rest of your fabric and cut out the remaining pieces, and we're ready to assemble our block. Hi quilters, let's put together our Sawtooth Star block. So now this particular block has 4 different colorways. Remember last time we made the block, they were all the same color? So I've already sewn together my other 3 blocks. So there's one here, 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 and I've just started to show you how the pieces all work together. So watch this, quilters. First of all, we're gonna make a flying geese block. So you wanna take that pretty quarter square triangle, and you want to add the half square triangles to the side. Now in this particular way, you want to press towards the outer half square triangles. So it looks just like this. Okay? So these pieces here are going to make this block. And then look, how easy is this? We have 2 squares that we cut from our smaller squares. We're just going to add it to the side, sew these together, and always you want to remember to press towards the square. So as you're taking those half square triangles and the flying geese block, you want to press towards the square. So in the center, again with those flying geese blocks, you want to press towards the square. That way when you line up all of the pieces, then it's going to lay together nice and flat. So this particular 3 pieces make this section right there, then you're going to sew them all together, and ta-da, you have a finished block. It's so exciting. I hope you're loving our block of the month. We'll see you next time. This episode of Batik Sampler Block of the Month has been brought to you by Anthology Fabrics and AccuQuilt.